I deleted the message the second I saw it, but not before I read the last line. I know what he did to you. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling. My breathing turned shallow, like I'd just been yanked backward into a memory I'd spent years trying to bury. The message came from an anonymous email, no subject line, no signature, no context. But I didn't need it. I knew exactly who they were talking about. I thought I was done with that chapter of my life. I thought walking away had closed the door. But now it was wide open again. And something ugly was crawling through. It was 2:36 a.m. I sat alone in my apartment, the only light coming from my laptop screen. The city outside was asleep, unaware of the storm rising inside me. The walls suddenly felt too thin, the air too heavy. I pulled my knees up to my chest and stared at the message again. I know what he did to you.
How?
Who else knew? Was it happening to someone else now? A buzzing sound startled me. My phone vibrated next to me on the table, but it was just a calendar notification. Therapy. Wednesday at 6 p.m. I hadn't gone in months. I couldn't even remember when I'd stopped. Maybe around the time I finally quit the job. Or maybe the day I convinced myself that what happened wasn't bad enough to call trauma. Just a misunderstanding, right? A gray area. That's what I used to tell myself. But it wasn't gray. It was dark. Pitch black. My name is Rachel Moore. I used to work as a creative lead at one of the top marketing firms in the city, Ashbridge and King. A sleek office on the 37th floor, glass walls, smart lighting, fresh-cut orchids at reception. Everything about the place screamed professionalism.
Polished.
Prestigious. And at the center of it all stood Mark Delaney, my boss. Mark had a way of making everyone in the room feel seen. Important. Special. It was part of his charm. His power. You'd hear his laughter across the floor, feel his hand on your shoulder during meetings, hear him whisper your name like you were his favorite project. At first, I felt lucky.
He mentored me.
Promoted me faster than anyone else on the team.
Trusted me with big accounts.
Took me out to networking dinners where I met people I used to only dream about meeting. And all the while, he'd say things like, "You're brilliant, Rachel. I see something in you." I wanted to believe that was all it was: mentorship, encouragement, a professional bond. Until the words became touches. The touches became habits. And the habits became threats wrapped in compliments. The first time I realized something was off, it was subtle. A hand lingering too long on my lower back as we walked through a crowded hallway. A late-night text that read, "You looked amazing today. Don't wear that dress around me unless you mean it." I laughed it off. Told myself it was harmless. Maybe even flattering. But the second time it felt different. We were at a company retreat. Late evening. Everyone else had gone back to their rooms. I was on the balcony overlooking the lake, and he appeared out of nowhere, holding 2 glasses of wine. "I thought you could use a little reward," he said with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. I took the wine to be polite, pretending not to notice how close he stood. Pretending not to hear the implication in his voice when he said, "Nobody's watching." I remember freezing. I remember laughing awkwardly and excusing myself. I remember the tight grip on my wrist as I turned away, and how quickly he let go when I looked him in the eyes. "Relax," he said. "I'm just playing around." But I didn't sleep that night. That retreat was 3 years ago. I didn't quit until 6 months after that. You'd think it would have been easy, just walk away.
Say something.
File a report. But when the person who's hurting you signs your paycheck, praises you in front of executives, and makes you feel like you owe him for your success, it's not that simple. So I stayed. And I learned how to live in pieces. Smile in meetings.
Numb my instincts.
Redo my makeup in the bathroom after wiping away tears.
Keep secrets.
Every time I considered speaking up, something stopped me. Sometimes it was fear. Sometimes it was shame. But most times it was doubt. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe I led him on. Maybe this is just what the industry is like. But tonight, that message shattered everything I'd tried to convince myself of. If someone else knew, if they were reaching out now, it meant I wasn't crazy. I clicked on the sender's email again, hoping maybe there'd be more. A second message. A clue. Anything. But it was empty. One message, one line, and silence. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and poured a glass of water, trying to still the shaking in my hands. My reflection in the window looked like a ghost, pale, scared, unrecognizable. I should let it go. It's in the past. He can't hurt me now. But that line kept repeating in my head like a drumbeat. I know what he did to you. Someone knew.
Someone saw.
And if they knew, maybe they were next. Maybe they were reaching out because they didn't want to be alone in it. I walked back to my laptop, sat down, and opened a new document. My name is Rachel Moore. And this is what Mark Delaney did to me. My fingers hovered again. Could I really do this? Could I put everything down? The moments I tried to forget? The words he used to control me? The look in his eyes when he thought I belonged to him? Could I finally stop protecting the man who never once protected me? I didn't sleep that night. The document stayed open on my screen, blank after the first sentence. I must have stared at the cursor for hours as it blinked, waiting for me to pour out years of pain, confusion, and silence. But the words wouldn't come. My mind was a battlefield of voices, his, mine, everyone's, fighting to control the story I'd locked away. By morning, I hadn't written a single paragraph, but the line was still there. My name is Rachel Moore, and this is what Mark Delaney did to me. It felt like a small kind of war cry. I got up, got dressed, and walked into the world like nothing had changed. But everything had. At the coffee shop, the barista greeted me with her usual cheerful smile. Morning, Rachel. Vanilla oat latte, right? I nodded, forced a smile back, and tried to pretend I wasn't shaking inside. That's the thing about trauma. No one can see it. You can be drowning while holding a conversation about milk options. You can be reliving a moment of assault while politely tapping your credit card. On my way out, my phone buzzed. Blocked number. You weren't the only one. I have proof.
Meet me.
Thursday, 7 p.m., Wallace and Main. I froze. Wallace and Main was a quiet corner cafe in Midtown, just far enough from downtown offices to feel private. No signature. No explanation. But somehow, I knew this wasn't a game. Proof?
The word hit like a stone in my chest.
Was this real? Or was I walking into a trap? I spent the rest of the day in a fog. At home, I paced the living room, pulling books from shelves and putting them back, washing clean dishes just to stay busy. But my thoughts kept drifting back to the message, and to Mark. His voice. His eyes. The way he used to walk into rooms like he owned everything and everyone in them. The way he made women laugh, and then made them uncomfortable, too quickly for anyone else to notice. There was one memory I hadn't thought of in years. A company holiday party, my second year. He'd asked me to help him bring out champagne from the back storage room. The hallway was quiet, music muffled behind us. He cornered me between crates of wine and whispered something I'll never forget. If you're smart, you'll stay loyal. I take care of the people who are loyal. At the time, I thought he meant job security, promotions, protection. But now I know better. He meant silence. That night, I went through my old emails, deleted texts, meeting schedules, notes, every digital fingerprint from my years at Ashbridge and King. I was looking for something, anything, to confirm that I hadn't imagined it, that the way I felt was rooted in something real. And then I found it, buried in my sent folder. An email from HR, dated November 14th, 20XX. I'm not sure if this is a formal complaint or just me needing to talk to someone, but I've felt uncomfortable around Mark Delaney. His comments, the way he touches me, sometimes it feels wrong. My heart stopped. I'd forgotten I even wrote that. It was late. I was upset. And apparently I never followed up. No reply. No investigation. No action. I clicked through my inbox. No response from HR. Not even a form acknowledgement. Just silence. They never replied. By Thursday, I was a mess. I sat at the back of Wallace and Main with my hood up and a cup of cold tea in front of me. Every time someone walked through the door, I flinched. Then she walked in. A woman in her early 30s, dark blazer, eyes scanning the room like she was on a mission. When our eyes met, she came straight toward me. "Rachel?" she asked quietly. I nodded. She sat down and looked around before sliding a manila envelope across the table. "You don't know me, but I used to work for Mark too." My throat tightened. "You're the one who emailed?" She gave a tight smile. "I've been trying to build a case. But I can't do it alone. There are others. I have names, records, NDA copies, even a recording." I opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside were screenshots, email threads, a typed letter from another woman, and then a USB drive.
"Play that," she said.
"It's a conversation between him and another employee. You'll hear what he really is." I stared at her. "Why me?" "Because you left," she said. "You made it out. And if you speak, others will feel like they can too." That night, I locked the door behind me and inserted the USB into my laptop. The audio was scratchy, but I could make out the voices. It was him.
Mark.
His tone was smooth, calculated, familiar. "Nobody's going to believe you. You're not the first girl to confuse ambition with attention." The voice on the other end trembled. "I didn't ask for this." "Then why'd you keep coming into my office? Why'd you wear that lipstick? You wanted it, sweetheart. Don't lie to yourself." My stomach turned. I paused the audio and buried my face in my hands. It was like hearing my own nightmare play out in someone else's life.
He hadn't changed.
He hadn't stopped. And now there was proof. I called my lawyer the next morning, a soft-spoken woman named Danielle who had once told me, "Don't wait until you're broken. Come when you're brave." "I have something," I told her. "I think I'm ready." There was a pause on the other end. "Rachel, this won't be easy. I know. You'll be questioned.
Attacked.
He'll fight back. I know. But you'll be heard." For the first time in years, I felt a tiny flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long. I sat in Danielle's office with a USB drive clenched in my hand, heart pounding so loudly I was sure she could hear it. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of a fan and the occasional creak of her leather chair as she leaned forward. She plugged in the drive, opened the audio file, and pressed play. The conversation played again. Mark's voice, calm and cold, filled the room. This time I didn't flinch. I watched Danielle's face instead, her brow furrowing as the weight of every sentence hit her. When the file ended, she leaned back slowly. "This is more than a pattern," she said. "It's a system, a setup. He's not just abusing power, he's designing it to be untraceable." I swallowed hard. "What do we do?" She clicked her pen. "We build your case. You and the others. With this audio, plus witness statements, your old HR email, and any evidence we can collect from the company records, we can take him down." My stomach churned. I had imagined this moment so many times. But it always ended with me backing out, crying in the shower, telling myself it wasn't worth it. This time I nodded. "I'm in." What happened next moved fast. Danielle connected with the other woman. Her name was Elena, and she introduced us to two more former employees who had left under suspicious circumstances. They were hesitant at first, afraid of the backlash, the legal threats, the shame. But once they saw I was serious, they started to talk. One by one, the pieces began to form a picture. Not a blurry suspicion, but a horrifying mosaic of psychological control, coercion, and silenced complaints. Elena revealed the most disturbing part. "I tried to report him," she said one night over a Zoom call.
"Twice.
And both times, HR told me they'd handle it discreetly." "What does that even mean?" I asked. "It means I was fired the next quarter. Budget cuts," they said. But Mark promoted a junior analyst the same week. She showed us her termination letter. It was clinical, cold, zero explanation. Danielle leaned closer to the screen. This company didn't just ignore abuse. It protected the abuser. Then came the email dump. Elena had saved everything. Copies of conversations, weird late-night texts, meeting invitations to private locations, and most chilling of all, screenshots of a Slack message where Mark joked to another male executive. "If she keeps dressing like that, she's basically begging me to pay her a different kind of bonus." My vision blurred with rage. I clicked away before I could break something. But the worst was yet to come. Elena sent me another file. She had debated whether to show me, but in the end, she said I had a right to know. It was a video. Security footage. Dated the night of the company retreat, I thought I'd imagined. It showed me walking down the hallway toward the wine storage. Then Mark following close behind. Then the door closing. There was no sound. No way to hear what he said. No way to see the panic I felt in that moment. But I knew what came next. I remember the pressure on my wrist. The way he hissed, "You owe me." And now, so would everyone else. I turned to Danielle. We need to release this.
Publicly.
Not just through legal channels. Danielle raised an eyebrow. That's a bold move. He built his empire on perception, I said. We take that away, and he has nothing left to hide behind. That week, I gave my statement to the journalist who'd been investigating workplace misconduct in high-level firms. She'd won awards for exposing corporate cover-ups, and when she heard the audio and saw the video, she didn't hesitate. This story is going to rattle people, she said. Are you ready for that? I thought about it. Really thought about it. No, I said honestly. But I'm doing it anyway. She smiled. Then let's burn the house down. The article dropped on a Thursday morning. The Fall of a Golden Boss, Inside the Hidden Harassment Empire of Mark Delaney. It was explosive. Elena's testimony. The recordings. My HR email. The security footage. Everything. Within an hour, the company's public relations team issued a vague statement. We take these allegations seriously and are conducting an internal investigation. By lunchtime, the board of directors suspended Mark, pending review. By dinner, his photo had been scrubbed from the company website. But the most unexpected thing happened the next day. I got a phone call from a woman I hadn't heard from in years.
Claire.
She'd worked 2 floors above me. Always polite, always distant. I never knew why. I read the article, she said, voice tight. I didn't know you went through that. I thought I was alone. I felt a lump rise in my throat. You weren't. I have something to show you, she said. Something I kept from the rest of the world, because I was scared. Later that evening, I met her in a quiet cafe just outside the city. She looked pale, but determined. She pulled a folder from her bag. Inside was a signed NDA, one with Mark's name and her signature. I never even got a lawyer, she whispered. They just told me to sign it. Said if I didn't, I'd be blacklisted. They gave me a check and told me to forget it happened. I stared at the document. This is illegal, I said. You were forced to sign under pressure. I know. But now I want to break it. I want to tell the truth. That was the moment everything truly shifted. Because now we had proof of payoff. Proof of silencing. Proof of a cover-up. Danielle called it the turning point. This, she said, holding up the NDA, isn't just a case of harassment anymore. This is corporate conspiracy. And it's going to unravel faster than any of them are ready for. I sat quietly for a long moment. The storm I'd held inside for years was finally out in the open, and instead of drowning, I was watching the sky clear. But then something occurred to me. If this many people had proof, how many others had been silenced? How many more secrets were still buried under boardroom floors? The courtroom was cold. Not in temperature, but in energy. Cold in the way it swallowed your voice, made your breath feel shallow, and forced your hands to grip the armrests just to feel grounded. Mark sat just 10 feet from me. He looked thinner. Older. His signature-tailored suit looked too sharp, too stiff. But his expression, still smug, still in control, made my skin crawl. He didn't look at me directly, but I saw the way his fingers tapped restlessly against the table. The way he kept glancing at his attorney, jaw clenched. He was nervous.
Good.
Danielle leaned in. You don't have to do this if you're not ready. The statements and evidence are enough. But I shook my head.
No.
He needs to hear it from me. And so does everyone else. The bailiff called my name. I stood up. My legs felt like iron poles, stiff and shaking at the same time, but I walked to the stand. Each step was heavier than the last, like I was walking through every year of silence, every moment of doubt, every time I'd questioned if this was my fault. I raised my right hand, swore to tell the truth.
Sat down.
Then I looked straight at him. I used to think I was just overreacting, I began. My voice was quiet, but steady. That maybe I misread things. That it was just how the industry worked, fast-paced, male-dominated, rough edges. I looked at the judge, then at the jury. But it wasn't in my head. It was calculated. Strategic. He didn't make mistakes, he made choices. I described the hallway incident. The late-night messages. The thinly veiled threats. I told them about the night I found the USB and how it cracked open a door I'd sealed shut for years. He told me I owed him, I said. He used fear like currency. And I was afraid every day for 5 years. Mark's lawyer objected.
Twice.
But the judge overruled both. And then it was his turn.
He stood. Slowly.
Walked toward me with the confidence of someone who'd always believed himself untouchable. Miss Moore, he began, you claim that my client harassed you over several years. Yet during that time, you were promoted twice. You received bonuses. You attended company retreats. I stared at him.
Yes.
Because I was good at my job. And because I was too scared to leave. Fear doesn't look like weakness. Sometimes it looks like compliance. He tried to twist my words. Pull up friendly-sounding emails. Photos from holiday parties. But I didn't break. Because this wasn't just my truth anymore. It was our truth. When the next witness took the stand, it was Claire. She held the NDA in her trembling hands. Her voice cracked. But she told them everything. About the hush money, the exit package, the threats of career ruin. And then Elena. And then one more. 4 women. 4 separate stories. 1 predator. Mark's face began to change. He was no longer calm. His mouth tightened, his hands fidgeted. When the audio played for the court, I watched him finally react, like hearing his own words spoken aloud broke through the mask. He mouthed something to his lawyer. Probably. Stopped the tape. But it was too late. The final blow came when Danielle brought up the company's HR director, now retired. The woman appeared over a Zoom call from another state. She looked tired, ashamed. She admitted on record that they were told to handle complaints internally. That Mark had friends on the board. That the budget cuts were used to quietly fire women who spoke up. Was Rachel Moore one of those women? The judge asked. No, she said softly. But she was on the list. Her time was coming. After the testimony ended, we took a break before closing arguments. I walked into the hallway, hands still shaking. And that's when I saw him, standing alone by the water cooler.
Mark.
For a brief moment, no one else was around. He looked up at me, his mouth curling into a tired, brittle smile. You think this'll fix you? He asked. My jaw clenched. No, I replied. But it'll stop you from breaking anyone else. He took a step closer, voice low. You'll regret this. I met his eyes and didn't look away. I used to regret everything. But not anymore. Not this. Back inside the courtroom, the energy had shifted. The jury looked tired, but alert, like they understood the weight of what they'd just heard. Danielle gave the closing argument. What you've witnessed isn't just misconduct. It's the deliberate, systematic destruction of careers, confidence, and lives. All for one man's ego. And now you have the power to stop it. I looked over at Mark one last time. His hands were folded, eyes forward, expression unreadable. But I saw it. Beneath the suit, beneath the years of smug power, he looked small. And that was the first time I'd ever seen him like that. As the gavel came down to close the day, I felt something shift inside me. Not closure. That's too clean a word. But a beginning. Because even if the verdict took weeks, I had already won something. My voice. The day the verdict came in, I didn't want to go to the courthouse. I told myself it was because I didn't need validation. That I'd already faced my fears, told my truth, and helped others find theirs. But the real reason? I was scared. Scared that after all of it, the testimonies, the documents, the humiliation broadcasted in headlines, justice would still find a way to slip through the cracks.
But I went anyway.
Because silence had stolen enough from me already. The courtroom was packed. Journalists, former employees, strangers who had followed the case online. Even Claire, Elena, and Danielle were there. I took my seat and waited. The jury filed in, faces blank. The judge asked the foreperson to read the verdict. On the charge of workplace sexual harassment, guilty. On the charge of wrongful termination, guilty. On the charge of suppressing internal complaints, guilty. My breath caught.
Guilty.
Again. And again. Mark didn't flinch. He just stared straight ahead. Like if he didn't move, maybe it wasn't real. But it was. This time it was real. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison with additional civil suits pending. The company launched an emergency restructuring, and several senior executives either resigned or were removed. They offered settlements to every woman who had signed an NDA. Some took it. Others didn't. I didn't. Money was never what I wanted. I wanted freedom. Weeks passed. Life moved on, but differently. I started getting messages. Hundreds of them. Some from old coworkers. Some from total strangers. Women who had never spoken up before. Women who were still in the middle of it. Women who said, "Your story gave me courage." At first, I tried to reply to everyone. I read them at night, tears running down my face, because I remembered what it felt like to suffer in silence. And now I wasn't alone. None of us were. So I made a decision. I left the company, of course I did. But I didn't disappear. I started something new. A platform. A community. A place where stories like mine could be heard, shared, and protected. Danielle joined as our legal advisor. Claire came on as a coordinator. Elena became our media strategist. We held panels, hosted virtual support groups, taught women how to recognize red flags, how to build their case, how to fight back legally, safely, and boldly. We called it Unmuted. And it exploded. Not because of me, but because it was needed. But even as I moved forward, something about it all still lingered. A shadow in the corner of every success. And I couldn't shake it. It wasn't fear anymore. It was curiosity. There was still something I didn't understand. Something that never quite added up. So one evening, long after the media buzz had faded and courtrooms had cleared, I met with someone from the company's IT team, an anonymous tipster who had reached out to me through our platform. "I saw what you did," he wrote. "You were right, but you don't know the whole story." We met at a quiet park. He wore a hoodie, sunglasses, nervous energy radiating off him. "What is it?" I asked. He looked around, then handed me a flash drive. Mark wasn't acting alone. My blood froze. "What do you mean?" "There was a system," he said. He used a secure file-sharing method with encrypted folders labeled with code names. Executives, HR, even board members. They all knew. Some looked the other way. Some helped him cover things up. My heart pounded. Why now? Because one of those people just got promoted to CEO. I went home, locked the door, plugged in the drive, and there it was. Dozens of folders. Records of complaint suppression. Internal emails. Confidential memos with phrases like reputation risk management and off-the-record compensation options. And photos. Photos I didn't know existed. Me, walking down the hallway that night. Me in meetings with Mark. Me caught on camera when I thought I was alone. I felt sick. This wasn't just harassment. It was surveillance. A whole operation to silence, control, and destroy women like me. I called Danielle. She didn't say a word for a long time after seeing the contents. Finally, she spoke. "This goes deeper than Mark. And if this gets out," I cut in, "then maybe we stop pretending justice has a finish line." She nodded, and we got to work. Weeks later, the story broke again. Corporate collusion. How one man's downfall revealed a decade of institutional abuse. This time, it wasn't just Mark's face in the headlines. It was others. People who had climbed the ladder by stepping on bodies, silencing victims, and signing checks. The fallout was massive. Multiple resignations. A government investigation. A class action lawsuit. It was everything I had once believed was impossible. And yet here it was. I stood on the rooftop of my new office one evening, the city buzzing below me, the air cool against my skin. Claire walked up beside me, sipping coffee. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. "More than okay." She smiled. "You did it." I turned to her.
No.
"We did it." Before leaving, I checked my phone one last time. There was a message. Unknown number. "You've made powerful enemies, but also powerful allies. Keep going." There was no name, no clue, just a reminder. The story wasn't over. But now, I wasn't afraid of what came next, because I had finally found my voice, and I wasn't giving it up again.